Matt McGlashan. I, of course, was at the show last month. Anyone else at the show last month?
Woo!
Excellent, good news. I wrote a new set in half the time. It's great. For those of you that don't know me or weren't at the show last month, a couple things you should know about me. I smoke a ton of weed. And as Jenny said, I live in my van. But good news, I've been smoking a little bit less weed these days, trying to be healthier. I'm still smoking what 9 in 10 doctors call too much weed, though. I had to go home for an endoscopy recently. Has anyone ever had to get a scope done? Good for you! When I went home for this, the doctor came in and was like, hey, just a quick question, you still smoking too much weed? And I was like, no, I cut it in half. I was really impressed with myself. He replied, that's still not good. I do smoke a lot of weed. I flew back to Ontario recently for that scope, and that was an unpleasant experience. Both the flying and the scope. It turns out that getting a camera shoved down your throat when you're only mildly sedated, it's not that fun. So anyways, I don't know where I could go. Like, I had to fly back home for this thing. I've been trying to book it for so long. The one saving grace about this entire process was I didn't have to sit next to anyone on the plane, which is great, because I do hate making small talk while I'm actively shitting myself, and I'm terrified of flying. I really hate having to get the scope done. Going up there was terrible. Like, they shove a camera down your throat, you're awake the entire time, it's terrible. The entire time I found myself thinking, like, why couldn't they go from the other end? You know, like start as a colonoscopy and just keep going. I know you get to go out for those. I was flying home recently and I was thinking, you know, it's weird. Delta's an airline. I wonder how they're handling this publicity from the Delta variant. So I did some research. Have y'all heard? Their CEO is still not calling it the Delta variant. Yeah, he's still insisting we all call it the Dirty D. It's strange though, like all of their employees are told to only refer to it as the variant. I guess that makes sense though, because like Corona last year did tell everyone to call them the beer. It's kind of unfair though, because like Delta has been doing everything they can to limit the spread of this virus. Like they're really trying, which is why I'm proposing we recall that variant the Carnival Cruise variant. At this point though, like how is this still happening? How are people still confusing the virus with brands? Like last year, a survey revealed that 16% of people didn't know if there was a connection between Corona the beer and Corona the virus. That 16% is not a lot, but it's still too fucking many people. Like if 16% of the people you went to high school with were like, yeah, I still believe in the tooth fairy, you would be concerned. So I was flying back from my scope, and as all of you know, I smoke a lot of weed. The TSA apparently agrees that I have a reasonable habit though. Because when I got home and I was unpacking, I opened up my bag and I see this little note on the top of my bag that's like, hey, this is the TSA, we just want to let you know that we opened and searched your bag. Don't worry, nothing was confiscated. What y'all don't know and what the TSA was well aware of is I had far more than the legal carry amount of weed. So anyways, that's how I know the TSA can fucking hang. I gotta invite them out to one of my vape sessions these days. I vape most of my weed, apparently that's a funny idea. I've never gotten into the hard stuff though, you know, like vaping nicotine. Anyone here vape? Anyone else? Perfect, you're gonna hate this section. I was chatting with my girlfriend the other day and naturally I brought up competitive vaping, which she didn't know about, which is apparently normal. For anyone else that's in the same boat as her, there's an entire group of people whose main personality trait is how much weed they can inhale and then subsequently exhale. And some of those people are sponsored. Picture this. Everyone close your eyes with me for a moment. You're in the conference room of a day's inn. The sound of a crowd envelops you, somehow heard through this impenetrable fog of exhaled glycerin and nicotine. You're now at a competitive vaping contest. It looks like an 80s music video in there. It looks like you're driving through Mount Tom. It looks like Scooby-Doo is gonna get fucking jumped the second he crosses the threshold. y'all think the coordinator of a competitive vaping expo has ever gotten their damage deposit back? I gotta believe that they just build it into their losses every year. Anyways, I'm watching videos with my girlfriend and I'm winning her over. By like the 7th smoke ring, she's even saying things like, God, this is impressive. Least stupid. But I think it's beautiful, honestly, it's just so inclusive. Like, at no other contest are you gonna get that level of participation. Like, hear me out. At a beauty contest, no one is also in the audience also twirling a flaming baton while singing God Bless America. But at a competitive vaping contest, you better believe that every audience member is exhaling a fat-ass cloud in chorus with the competitors on stage. Sorry? Like, even the cameraman is getting in on this game. I'm not illustrating this well. Even the cameraman is getting in on it, and you can tell. Because every once in a while, the camera will duck for a moment, and then like a vape phoenix rising again, it'll find a fresh cloud in its vision. It's a real shame though. Like, you see all of this competitive vaping coverage, and the one thing you don't really see is female competitive vapors. Like, who are all these young vape queens going to look up to? Competitive vaping is far too aggressively nerd masculine at this point. Like, I guarantee every one of these guys that's on stage at these things played Yu-Gi-Oh! And wore a fedora in middle school. We're almost 2 decades into competitive vaping and vaping existing at this point. So I have to start wondering, do some of the old vape kings have little vape princes that they can hand the torch to? You know, like a sports dad, but for vaping. Like a vape dad. Okay, so a hockey dad gets up at 5 a.m., packs a bag, and drags his son to the rink. A vape dad gets up at 2 p.m., packs extra batteries, drags his son to the nearest back parking lot of a strip mall. I can already see the montage for a biopic in my head at this point. Like, you see the son just wheezing and exhale as he works through breathing exercises, coughing as they try to practice smoke rings, both of them passing out as they increase their nick over 100. And finally, we get that glorious shot of the son running up a flight of stairs while vaping. Adrian! Because of the popcorn line. I wonder what the crash room at a competitive vaping event looks like. Like, is there a space that they can go to if they over-nicotine themselves? Or are there just like Spencer's Gifts and Lids employees crumpled in the middle of the floor? Speaking of all of those employees, who is selling the Rick and Morty t-shirts right now? And if all of them are there, is there just a forlorn horde of like vagrants out front of Lids, just hungry for custom embroidery? Okay, we've talked about competitive vaping for a while now. I have a serious question for y'all. Is this a winter or summer Olympic event? Hear me out. The Olympic Committee is trying way too hard to court that youth market. Like, this past summer, we got skateboarding and speed climbing. Great additions. I'm excited about those. But I'm getting worried because this winter, they said that they're just not letting the 4th guy get on the bobsled. You just gotta hold on at the back the entire way. What do you think competitive vapors are gonna do after they age out of the sport? We're still on this. Like, what do you think? Every athlete gets too old to compete at a point. Do you think they'd be good at, like, I don't know, maybe predicting the weather? They spend all day making clouds and predicting wind speeds. I feel like something of that has got to translate. I mean, competitive vaping is weird. I've talked about it a lot, but I feel like I'm weird too. I should talk about myself a little bit here. As some of you may remember, I had a camera shoved down my throat. It's not the first time that has happened. Don't worry, we're not going to dwell on it more. I've always had a little bit of a weird body, even when I was growing up. Like, okay, earlier this year, I found out I have IBS. I was really surprised, because I legitimately thought we were all pooping sand. No one told me otherwise. Speaking of weird things I found out this year, this summer I learned I was supposed to be a helmet baby. Y'all familiar with this? Like the kids that have to wear a helmet because their head comes out mal-shaped? Well, it turns out I have a pointy head. The doctors came to my parents, they were like, listen, it's not gonna be fatal, but you should get him a helmet. And my parents were like, nah! So anyways, now you're getting a clearer picture as to why this hairstyle. Speaking of younger Matt, when I was younger, I had a real big sensitivity to the cold. I could never have cold foods. My parents tried to do what they could. They would let me drink melted freezies. They were like, listen, we know you can't bite it, but here, go ahead, kid. There's no ice in a melted freezie to slow you down. That's fucked up. You're just mainlining juice. I have a weird theory, though. Okay, I've got weird bowels, a pointy head, I'm sensitive to all cold. I think I might be an alien. It would explain a lot. Like why my parents don't want me to get DNA tested. And why they don't trust the government. But those are questions for another day. Y'all ever realize that something you thought was true your entire life just turns out it's not? I've been realizing a lot of things that I held as firm beliefs were just patently untrue. And I've been writing some of those down when I realized them. Do you mind if I share some of those with y'all?
Woo!
Excellent. So apparently there's no scientific study that says you eat 8 spiders a year. That was just some shit my brother said to mess with me. Also, for anyone that's wondering, puffins are not extinct. Nor are they interchangeable with the dodo. You can even see them in Nova Scotia. It turns out if you get chicken pox, you're actually more likely to get shingles. Not less. Fuck me for getting it 6 times. Apparently maid and maiden do not mean old woman. They exclusively mean young woman. Finally, red herrings are not birds. They're smoked fish and plot devices. Sometimes though something sounds fake, but it turns out it's actually true. Recently I learned about a new type of birth control that I for one want to be first in line for. Let me read you some headlines that I read when I was first researching this. Is steeping your balls the future of male birth control? Could you teabag your way to infertility with a genital jacuzzi? Is a contraceptive bath something you'd like? Future you could be in luck. So apparently there's a new type of male contraceptive that is a ball jacuzzi. If none of the guys are rejoicing here, you didn't hear me. There's a ball jacuzzi that'll keep you from getting someone pregnant. Yes! There's some interesting instructions that go alongside of it though. One of the first instructions that you get when you're learning about this thing is, the bather will add water up to an indicated mark, set together with a physician according to testicle size. Great. I like a descriptive list. I want to know how much water. One quick question. What if one ball is smaller than the other? Asking for a friend. What if a friend is lopsided? Of course, the next instruction is the bather will then add their balls to the device. Hold up. Add? Sounds like I'm scooping them out. I'm making some eggs. Add some salt, get it going faster. As I learned about this too, I learned something really interesting. It uses something called ultrasonic water, which does sound like I'm going to become the grossest X-Men. Just, it's me, testicular. My long ball pubes are here to tickle you. I do wonder what you can add to this dough. Can you add essential oils to this thing? Is this a new opportunity for a Scentsy product line? I need to know if I can have eucalyptus balls. As an added feature, it does come with an app that will send you push reminders. You'll just be in a meeting at work, and suddenly your phone will, it's time to steep your balls. Unfortunately, it does recommend that does turn out that they recommend waiting 2 weeks before it'll actually work after your first use, which leads me to believe that you gotta get rid of the old sperm. The other major downside with this, main downside really, is that it's only been tested and proven to work on animals. But I guess I could boink some animals if there's no strings attached. I just don't want a sheep calling me later. Y'all want to know the best part about this? It was invented by a woman. Only a woman knew that men could not put up with the same bullshit we've been making them do for years as birth control. She's just over here I don't know, fuck it. It's a ball bath. Here, light some candles, pour some wine for your dick, listen to ball music. Fuck it. Of course it did win a Dyson Award, makes sense. That word was invented when a man stuck his dick in a vacuum cleaner and came so hard that he was like, we have to give this one an award. Speaking of birth control, y'all ever realize that the second the guy gets a vasectomy, he's very vocal about it? Like, always excited to announce the fact that he has done this. I, for one, am excited for when we all get to talk about putting our nads in this little hot pot. Even my father was way too excited when he got his vasectomy, not his testicle bath. Like, is this a phenomenon with men? Like, are we all just getting vasectomies and discussing it? Is there going to be a day where I just approach my father-in-law and I'm like, hey, sir, I did it. I fixed myself so I can dump endless loads in your daughter. Because that feels like an uncomfortable Thanksgiving Day conversation. But back to the ball jacuzzi. They're looking for equity partners at this point, so if any of you can afford to contribute to this, please do. I need a safer environment to be steeping my balls in. Like right now, I've just been dunking them into different kettles next to subwoofers, and I don't think it's effective or safe. For real though, if any of you can, please, I want this in my life. You know, speaking of men's health, I recently shaved for Movember. That is why I look a little bit different. I used to look like a drug dealer, and now of course I look like a narc, or potentially the high schooler he's trying to turn. When I was getting ready to shave, just one day I turned to my girlfriend and I offered like, hey, I get up in the middle of the night to pee sometimes. What if I just shaved and you woke up and I was baby-faced? To which she replied, nope. And I understand where she's coming from because I did shave eventually and I looked in the mirror and the second I saw myself, it looked like a child should be approaching every grown-up to ask, can I apply for puberty? I'm very, very tall and tired. You know, on the topic of November, I went for a polar dip this morning. Anyone familiar with the concept of a polar dip? Okay, a couple of you. For anyone that's out of the loop, that is when you and several of your most psychotic friends throw themselves into the ocean in midwinter. That is why I'm not speaking in my usual, low baritone voice. It is also why my balls are perched on my shoulder here. For real though, I think it is why I just did 5 minutes on a ball jacuzzi. I need to fucking warm up, gang. I got a couple last things to leave y'all with. Every time I have a ridiculous high thought, I try to write it down. Any chance I could share some of those with y'all?
Woo!
Thank you. Did you know that any paper towel is a select size? You can rip it fucking anywhere. It's just paper towel, the softest paper. A Jeep doesn't feel like a real car. It's more like the bones of a Land Rover. Like somewhere along the way, the Land Rover died, and now the Jeep is driving around as a skeleton warning to other SUVs. At best, a Jeep is just a big ATV with a roll cage. I miss the old safety caps on canned weed beverages. Okay, for those of you that aren't familiar, the new ones are easier to get off. It's a nice feature. But personally, I miss the personal injury of smoking weed. Like burning your thumb on a lighter and scratching your knuckle on the inside of a cap. I'm becoming increasingly confused by Christian celebrities. Unless they're Illuminati plants. Over here you got Bieber with his evangelical revival and also weed brand. And all the way over here you've got Kanye with his Baptist stuff. And every fucking thing Kanye's doing these days. It turns out iPhones have become Etch-a-Sketches because every time I shake mine, it tries to erase what I've just written. As some of you from the last show might remember, I grapple with night sweats. Good news. It's not fixed, but it has a name now. Matapause. So sometimes I remember to write the idea, but nothing actually useful. This one just says baseball room. which I can only assume is a very elegant indoor diamond where you wear ball gowns to play baseball. Hearing aids for former DJs? The branding and also how to market. Hi, Matt was onto a good business idea. Sometimes I also try to write jokes, apparently. Sometimes they're just a setup. Sometimes they're just a punchline. This one just happens to be find an excuse to use your dick as a shovel. Which is a funny visual, but isn't really that applicable. I'm really fucking shoehorning this shit in here. There's a new name for the new North American Free Trade Agreement. I learned that while I was high. Never found out what it is. But I can only assume that because Trump was behind it, it's gotta be something like the newer, better, freer North Americaner Trader Agreementer. Cause it's better. Finally, let me leave you guys with like one real fun high thought. It's a positive one. I love living in the future. I've been Matt McGlashan. Thank you guys so much. Good night.